Due to the following CBS School Break special, Magnum PI will not be seen today. It will be broadcast tomorrow in the regular time period.
Word Balloon is brought to you by the League of Word Balloon Listeners. Welcome back, everybody. Time again for Word Balloon. Look at everybody dancing to the Word Balloon theme song. It's the Comic Book Conversation show.
Alex Ross is pretty good.
Never seen his stuff before?
Yeah.
He might be somebody in a year or two. We'll see.
Wow.
That's true. Absolutely. John Sartre's with you. Thank you for joining us today on Word Balloon. What a group. Man, I thought I was just going to talk to Shelly Bond tonight about her fantastic new Kickstarter campaign. As she continues her journey through the world of editing. That's iDoppelganger, which is an active Kickstarter right now, and it's doing well. But joining her, it's really focusing on the Vertigo years. But joining her, Vertigo collaborators, Mike Allred, Steve Seagle. Good to see everybody. Welcome back to Word Balloon.
Not just that, but the three of us, go way back.
Much farther back.
Shelly was my first editor ever. Steve gave me my big break, my first professional gig.
That never happened.
These are the two people that I will do anything for.
Oh,
that's great.
Hey, I'll take that reading.
So tell me how everybody got together. Shelly, you haven't talked yet. Why don't you say how you hooked up with these guys?
Hey,
we never hooked up. Let's just clarify that right away.
Okay, first of all, we absolutely never hooked up.
Okay.
In red pen, full stop.
Okay.
First of all, I was lucky enough to get hired right out of college by Diana Schutz at Comico, as many of you know. And my first friends and my best friends and my forever friends in comics are right here, Mike and Steve. Mike, I'll start with our story because it's adorable. Mike sent some submissions in to Diana, and they were really, really good.
And but rejected.
Right? Asked to send Mike a rejection letter, and it killed me because I went through his art and my eyeballs popped out. I saw so much Bowie, and huge Bowie fan since 1974. John, you know that because you've read my summer camp memoir. So I couldn't help but write a personal note to Mike and just say, hey, I think your art's great. Are you a Bowie fan? And then what happened next, Mike?
I quit. And this universe, this history. Yeah. Well, I just kept plugging away because it's you can't overestimate how just the tiniest bit of encouragement helps, and it kept me going, and so I kept doing my own thing. Steve and I had met in Colorado Springs. I was teaching television production at the Air Force Academy, and had the same job your dad had, right, Steve?
Right. My dad had it like 30 years before you, and I lived next door to where you lived.
Wow.
30 years before you lived there.
So Steve is literally the first pro I ever met. My friend Charlie Custis told me about this pro, and so we went to Pikes Peak Books and Comic, and Steve was in the back of the store signing copies of Kafka, his very first publication. And so
no one asked me to. I was just sitting there every day endlessly.
That was my first taste of marketing genius. Signed comic books, so people would buy them because they were signed. It was a great way to incentivize people to pick up his stuff. But Steve gave me my first crash course in the kind of tools I should be using, the kind of paper I should be working with, the dimensions, how to submit to publishers, what the indicia meant, like bare bones, square one stuff. And one
I
of the
want to
most
interrupt you though. I want to interrupt just for a second and say that was when I was going to Boulder, Colorado school, and Mike drove up 90 miles and brought with him Dead Air, which was just a completed, brilliant, I did it all graphic novel. And he's like, what should I do better? I'm like, publish it. I don't know. You don't need any pointers, actually. So I hooked him up with a publisher who went out of business, and then I got him a job for another publisher who went out of business. So that's what I did.
Yeah. But all of that work was solicited and talked about and teased. And so, in fact, Renegade, the first publisher, Denny Lubert, was going to publish Dead Air, my first work that Steve was talking about. And she had published Flaming Carrot, among other things, and of course Steve's work. And so right after it was solicited, she decided, that's it, I'm done. But Dan Vado of Slave Labor Graphics had seen the solicitation and contacted me and asking me what was going on with it. And I was like, nothing. And by this point, I was a TV reporter in Europe. I was sent all over Europe covering mostly human interest stories. And so with Dan Vado, he became my publisher. And so by the time that was coming out as a graphic novel, Steve had managed to solicit and sell a 12-issue series called Jaguar Stories. And this was for Kamiko, where Shelly was an editor. And so she became my first editor. Nobody had ever edited my work before. And it paid and was a page rate. And it was enough that I could risk pulling up stakes and moving back to the States. And that's what we did. And then within 6 months, the checks stopped coming.
And within 7 months, the company was gone.
Wow.
Yeah, and this was Jaguar Stories, which has never come out.
No.
Which is such a drag because it was so cool.
I am literally writing a podcast for us to do about the collapse of it all. So
that sounds great.
I was thinking today, after you invited me to this, that we could do Jaguar Stories with the fictional elements tied in with our real lives and all the drama that has happened for the three of us over the decades.
You are psychic because it's already half done. I'll tell you.
Wow.
I've just been tinkering on it, but I think it will work.
Steve, that's great to hear, man. Yeah, please,
Not
Shelly.
book, just a cool podcast.
I'm giving this.
I mean, there are crazy, wild, exciting things that have happened to the three of us over the years. Yeah. And very significant things. And we always seem to kind of revisit and check in with each other and all the different things that have happened. And of course, the Vertigo years is what we're going to be talking about. But we were there at the beginning. We were there at the beginning of Vertigo and did some very significant historical things.
Yeah, and it's amazing how, you don't realize it until you look back, but there were so many strange coincidences. I wanted to give that origin story, Mike, a 10 because I'm grading everything because as an editor, I'm always grading. So
unfortunately, Mike, it's out of 100, so she has some notes.
Yeah, that makes sense. That makes sense.
10 for Mike and a 3.4 for Steve so far.
That's the best you've ever given me. Thank you.
Oh, bring it up, Steve.
That's why I'm being quiet. I'm letting the three of you. I feel like being a fly on the wall and letting you guys kind of talk about all this. But Shell, so I know it's covered in Doppelganger, and that is kind of the point. Like we've said, Doppelganger is about Shelley's run at Vertigo. It's titled The Last Days of Vertigo, but really is your whole career there, and certainly Mike and Steve and other creators are going to be in there, quoted in there. But so do you mind saying how you got with Vertigo?
Well, let me just make it super clear, John, because I know you've backed my other books. So just to get it off my chest, I'm going to run through real quickly. Filth and Grammar, which was part 1 of my editing trilogy, is 80% how to make comics and 20% my life as an editorial ingenue, climbing the ladder at DC Comics in the 90s. Fast Times, which is part 2 of the editing trilogy, is the opposite ratio. It's 20% tips and tricks of the trade on editing and 80% editorial antics. And it's a love letter to New York City, living and working in New York City. But I Doppelganger is a little bit different. So it is absolutely my life at DC Comics, because I was the very last editorial person to be hired in December of 1992. I was also the final original Vertigo member to walk the plank, as I say. I was part of the first round of layoffs that continued until recently. And so I wanted to not only document my time in the 21st century, because I Doppelganger starts in 2000, but I also kind of wanted to make it 50% how to actually just exist in the 21st century from job to job and stay positive and make comics because you have to, and don't let anyone get in your way. And the best time to make comics is now. So it's 50% a look back. And that's why I wanted Mike and Steve to join me today, because they were so integral to my rise and fall and sideways dance, across the hallways at DC Comics. And yet so much has happened since I left DC in 2016. I've gotten into self-publishing. I work with my husband. We run Off Register Press. So much of this book is more about positivity and empowerment and really making comics a better place than we might have thought we left it a few years ago, because our generation still has a lot of work to do when it comes to inspiring and emboldening the next generation to continue what I think is the greatest art form on earth.
Steve, let me ask you first, and then I'm going to ask Mike.
First,
Do you guys?
Shelly a solid 7. That was.
Oh,
All right,
thanks.
there you go. That's excellent. What? No, but honestly, as Shell said, and again, glass half full, glass half empty. Steve, first you. How do you feel where comics are today? Is it the opportunity, place that Shelly is putting out there, or different thoughts, same thoughts? What are your thoughts on that?
I mean, the common bond for the three of us is that even when we have had big time, important, kick-ass jobs, we've also still just made what we want to make, right? And that was how it was when I got in. I made Kafka in my dorm room, ripping paper and pasting up with a glue stick, learning to letter myself and doing a terrible job of it, but going, I got to make comics. Mike showed up with a completely done comic book. Shelly's cutting and pasting in her office that she's sitting in right now. Like, we've always done that, and you can still do that, right? And whatever happens to the comics industry, the best thing about it is, if you're Mike, you can do it all. If you're me, you can do it with another person. And if you're Shelly, you can do it with another person. You can just make comics, right? So that never changes. That's what's cool. And my favorite stuff I've done is that. It's like getting somebody I want to work with and going, let's make this thing, and if there's an editor involved like Shelly or Diana or Karen or, the great editors that I've worked with go, here's how that could be better. And they just leave you alone to make it better. And it doesn't have to get much bigger than that. So that part, we're never in problems with comics because that part is eternal. AI can make comics, but they can't make weird little random choices I'm going to make with my fractured brain. So AI can't even do what we're doing the way we do it. So I think that's always in good shape. The industry, whoa, that's never in good shape, but it seems like it's less in good shape now.
Which is
Mike?
what I've heard my entire career.
Yeah.
The question, Mike, is
Every
is it graphed like this and we're wrong, or is it like?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Or is it an EKG that's doing this?
I don't know how much time we have, but I've just seeing your faces. There's so much I want to say, but like for instance, the state of the industry when I was starting out and getting to know Steve. my friend Charlie Custis had given me all of these comics for me to dive into. He was encouraging me to get back into liking comics. I'd completely abandoned them in my childhood because of the death of Gwen Stacy. That's not a joke. It traumatized me. And so I spent all my money on record albums, and that brings me back to my collection, my connection with Shelly. But one of the things that Charlie had given me was the first 4 issues of Mr. X by the Hernandez brothers. And I was telling Steve how much I loved it. And he had like a Mr. X poster in his house and stuff. And he said, if you like Mr. X, you're going to love Love and Rockets. And it literally changed my life as far as opening up my brain to the possibility of comics, and that there should not be rules. And so you see all these people that have come and gone in over the years. And the most exciting stuff is when somebody comes in and it's just, you've never seen it before. You've never felt it before. And that's what Steve opened my eyes to. And fact, he's very modest about this, but if Jaguar Stories didn't happen, I would have stayed in broadcasting. That was the only thing that got me to go full time and take that roll of the dice. And with Shelly, just the constant inspiration that comes from her in every aspect of pop culture, and even things that I'm familiar with. Like, we're both huge into glam rock, and even though I liked Roxy Music and was familiar with Roxy Music, her enthusiasm for it in a conversation got me to dive even deeper into Roxy Music. So as a for instance, and also I want to publicly, we've had huge success with iZombie. This was the last thing I did with Vertigo, and it would not exist without Shelly. It's just that simple. She got Chris and I together, and in so many ways is very much a co-creator of iZombie, and that needs to be said. She's the kind of editor that spurs you on in a creative way that it is, some people will find it intrusive that when, you kind of just, I want to do my own thing, just correct the spelling. But she will come in with, what if you did this? Or what if this happened? And it's like, and you may not follow that exact path, but it will inspire you to raise your bar and really bring it in. And that's just the kind of working relationship that is exciting. It's like being in a great band, Yeah, it's one thing.
She's not going to force it. Like, she would never go do it or else. It's just like, here's great ideas, take them if you want to, which is great.
Yeah, which is why the Beatles are better than any of the solo artists. As great as they are, that chemistry together, and that's what happens for the three of us in what we've done and tried to do.
Well, once again,
in the notes it says the comics are 9.8, not 10. So
no, a 4.1 for Steve for interrupting, a 10 for Mike. And I just wanted to say, I think one of the greatest things about us meeting was that we really had similar entry points or gateway drugs with Love and Rockets. So that must be said. Also, who is this?
Adorable. Blondie.
Gorgeous dog.
oh
Blondie.
my gosh.
The tide is high.
Of course it's
That's
Blondie.
right.
So I was going to tell the origin story of iZombie, but I'm saving it for iDoppelganger because I love how you came onto that book. And this is no lie. It happened during a conversation where I put the writer on hold and called Mike. And I'm not going to repeat what I said to Mike, but all Mike said back to me was, I'm in. So
That's
you have to read the book, but every comic's origin story is different. Some are tragic. Some are just too weird to be true, but they are because they're comics. That one is one of my favorites. But thank you.
Cool.
Thanks for what you said.
I just had Chris Robertson on, the co-creator of iZombie, last month, and we certainly obviously talked about it. And it's a wonderful book. You again have done so many other interesting things, and I'm really glad you bring up the whole rock and roll attitude, because really that's what Vertigo always felt like to me. And I know a lot of projects reflected and even followed a lot of rock and roll things. I know Philip Bond and I have certainly talked about some of his Vertigo pop stuff that he did that really got into rock. But was that the prevailing, like, did Karen Berger, who obviously was the head honcho of Vertigo, or was that you, Shell, with your rock and roll attitude?
Well, listen, I have to just, for the record, remind everyone that the genius of Vertigo, of course, was all Karen. It was her idea. It's what sort of tumbled out of what was called the Berger books before Vertigo was an imprint title. However, I think Karen's greatest asset was that she hired the right people to work with her. And every word that I just said, I mean. She hired diverse people from different backgrounds, different genders, different parts of the world to edit with her. It was never Karen telling us what to work on, but we were all hired for our points of view. And each of us had a very distinct vision, from Stuart Moore, who came from book publishing, who launched the Helix line, which was the science fiction line, to Lou Stathis, who really was the epitome of a rock and roll comic book editor. He was the editor-in-chief of a music magazine and High Times. So he came in with a real New York publishing background and had his own point of view. And of course, when I came in, I guess, I've always felt like music and comics were my two favorite loves, and I always wanted to combine them. I couldn't do one without the other. So I'd like to think that everything that I did for Vertigo and since Vertigo was just really all about a punk rock spirit and a post-punk aesthetic and urgent art. Because as I've said so many times, the day that I saw Joe Strummer playing rhythm guitar on Erga Music War,
Rob Perry wins the pool. Rob in the chat said, mention Strummer and watch out. So here we are.
Here we are. We're there already. Thank you so much, Rob. So the day that I saw Strummer with his rhythm guitar, I knew that that's what I wanted to do. I wanted to be electric. I wanted to be on stage. Couldn't play guitar, but wanted to channel that fervor and that energy into art. Couldn't write, couldn't draw, but here we are. I'm with the people who can. And there's nothing greater than being an editor and watching the art evolve from someone's head to their hands to the page. Mic drop.
For Joe Strummer fans, so I don't. After iZombie was Art Ops, duh, and the protagonist is freaking Joe Strummer. Completely inspired. And I think, and obviously the discussions with Shelly was like, well, I'll make him look like Joe Strummer. So that's what I did.
It took me quite a while.
That's a 7. That was solid.
Not a 7. From Mike, it was a 10.
At least a 7.
Look, and I just want to say, as far as like editing, I'm not a bully. I know there are rumors about me, but honestly, Mike, the two of us generally come in ideas like, well, actually with Steve too, I feel like we're all kind of simpatico. And that was true with Joe Strummer and with Art Ops, but also Steve. I mean, let's chat for a minute about American Virgin, because when Steve pitched the project to Vertigo, we both came up with Becky Cloonan to draw that book independently. You can't make this up. We had a phone conversation and we both were talking over each other, not unlike what we've been doing, how we've been doing it tonight. And we both couldn't wait to tell the other person that we found this amazing young artist.
We had looked at a bunch of artists.
She is amazing.
We had looked at a bunch of artists and traded back and forth. You like this one? And I, at some point I was like, I really just want a woman to draw this book. And we're like, well, let's think about it. And then literally the next time we talked, we had both landed on Becky. And we're like, she's never going to do it. And then she did.
Well, a lot of the books we're going to talk about tonight really did. They're as relevant now as they were 25 years ago. Yeah, here you go. Stand by, Steve. I'm going to zoom in on you. Boom.
Wait, Steve, that's a good look for you. No, a little bit over to the left. There. That's a good look. Yeah.
That cover kills too. Oh,
Frank
man.
quietly drawing the nastiest tongue ever. When that sketch came in on the fax machine, I think it was still that long ago, like everybody was like, well, that's just pornographic. We can't use that. And we're like, that's the cover.
It was. Although, Steve, it must be said, I had so much fun art directing that logo, and that was Steve Cook, who did a tremendous logo design. But I seem to recall you were a little mad at me.
Well, I was pissed that the title was American Virgin because it was just called Virgin, and every Vertigo book it seemed was American something, and I really didn't want that. But we couldn't trademark or copyright the Virgin part because of Virgin Atlantic Airlines and Airways and Megastores.
There was also a Virgin comic book imprint that had just launched.
Oh, I didn't know about that. I forgot all about that.
But I think you were mad at me, not because of that, because I didn't make that rule. But
those two kids are always fighting.
I know, right? It had to do with red, white, and blue, if I'm not
I
mistaken.
hated that it was red, white, and blue. Yeah, because it was not only American, but then it was red, white, and blue. I think you told me the French flag was blue, white, and red, and it was fine.
Well, all I know is that for like 6 years after that, you told me how much you loved working on the book, except for the time that I put red, white, and blue in the logo.
I'm not anti red, white, and blue. I just don't like it in logos. It's like too subtextual.
I'm with you. No, I get it.
Speaking of logos, I've done the logo for almost everything I've ever done, like Silver Surfer, like everything. But iZombie, this is my love and respect for Shelly. What I was approaching didn't work, and she took it to where we went, and I have that kind of respect for her, and it excited me. So usually I'd be more protective in those kind of things, but in this case, I'm always open to Shelly's ideas.
So who did the logo then?
How was that, Shelly? Was that a 10?
You know what? That was actually a 12. Thank you so much. We're going to have to make a new scorecard. Well, Mike, I think that's a really it's interesting to talk about that. And John, to your question, so I think from there I actually met with our art director in house, Maria Cabardo, who was a terrific addition to we thought of her as Vertigo's own personal art director. She did work for lots of different divisions at DC Comics, but she really loved our books and she was super talented. So I actually had a chat with her because I think she was working on the ad campaign. She came up with a really terrific high contrast typography driven logo. But Mike, one thing I wanted to mention, when we first started working on iZombie, I think both had different ideas about the covers. And one of my favorite covers of all time in the history of comic book covers, no lie, has got to be that cover that you did of the character, the vampire character, where it was mostly her neck. Yeah. And I have to tell you that I think your cover run on iZombie, just like each month, just blew my mind. I feel like you went like so much further. You spent so much more time thinking about how you can like one up the cover that you did the month before. And it really showed through the whole run. So I wanted to tell you that because working with you just in general and the art was always fun, but the covers I think were next level.
I always looked forward to your reaction. That was always in my mind. Like, what will Shelly think of this? Will this get Shelly excited? Will this? And it was key. So, yeah,
that's cool. I also, again, I want to get into some of the other books that you guys were all involved with, and the two of you, well, three of you again, involved with Vertical, excuse me. And a pretty and I mean if this image for people who are watching doesn't convey, here Shelly's gonna show you. I mean, I remember seeing this on the racks, indeed. So there they are.
That's only half of it.
Yeah, really. Well, look at that, exactly. Steve's got it butterflied right now, so you can really see what it's like. But despite you doing that obviously horizontally, it is a vertically, exactly. Shelly's showing us that it is kind of that scrolling idea of images, and that was the whole point of the format of the story. But yeah, what was the inspiration for Vertical, Michael? Was it Was it to do it this way? I mean, yeah. Oh, this was Shelly again. This was yours.
No, it's
But
Steve.
it always starts.
Steve?
I like weird formats and forms, and I like to, the reason I don't have a rabid fan base is because my next book is nothing like my last book. So if you like the last one, you'll hate the next one, and that's just the way it goes. But Shelly knows that about me, and she was like, "Hey, we have this kind of way to cut a book in half, and it would make like either a funky horizontal book or a funky vertical book. Would you want to do something with that?" I'm like, "Hell yeah, I absolutely would." And so, I just started thinking about, this is pre-scrolling on phones, so I was just
Right.
thinking about
Wait, by 20 years. By 20 years.
So
Well,
I thought about falling, and I thought about Hitchcock, and I thought about Warhol, because I was thinking about Mike going, what could we do? What could we do? And, Mike loves a lot of things, but he hadn't done anything with Warhol by that point. I was like, well, what if we set something in the factory or something like the factory days? And it's just all about falling through this book, just continuously vertically dropping the whole time. And Shelly was like, yep, let's do that. And Philip Bond, who's sitting upstairs from Shelly right now, was also the inker.
Yeah.
Indeed. So I think, Mike, you and Laura.
At my request.
And
asked
Laura, who I hope is sitting upstairs or nearby Mike, colored it. So it was a real family affair.
She's cooking something that smells really good.
I'll be there in 10 minutes.
I was going to say, we have enough for everybody. I want the viewers to see, look at this incredible coloring. I mean, Laura is such a huge part of every Mike Allred project, whether she's credited as colorist or just inspiration for Mike. But seriously, this project, I think, it exemplifies the kind of books that the three of us always wanted to do. We had our hands on the pulse, I think, of like next level, because we respected the art form so much. And let me tell you, this was not easy to get approved, because everyone in marketing said, what? How are we going to rack that? And our answer was, we're going to rack it 2 up.
2 up, it's half a comic.
Each other, right?
By the way, we have all the rights to that. We can do whatever we want with it.
I was going to ask about a lot of your guys, but when I say guys, I mean all of you collectively, Vertigo projects. How many of them have reverted back to you that you can republish them? You've seen some comments already. Oh my God, I never saw that. I remember it very distinctly in 2003, and it was great, and it was interesting, and they racked it with other graphic novels, and it was just a slim book. Shell, it's a shame horizontally. That was a missed opportunity for Wednesday's comics. I mean, I love that they came out in newspaper form and the big, oversized collection that they did. But that would have been a great way to individually collect all the individual stories and everything.
No, absolutely. Listen, I think, again, one of the things that makes the original Vertigo so unique is that, Karen was the champion for us. And I have to say, 98.6% of the time, my projects were approved. And it wasn't just because it was me asking. I'd like to think it was that I hired the right people who were really the innovators of modern comics. And we just wanted to keep pushing boundaries and trying new things. So again, like for anyone who didn't hear about this, it was a big deal to us. Maybe it didn't sell 50,000 copies back in 2003, but we knew we were onto something, and we're really proud of it. So who knows? Maybe we'll find another home for it, and
Mike,
a second story.
Mike, I was going to ask also, as far as the storytelling and the fact that it was vertical that way, was that hard to get your head around from a storytelling standpoint, as far as panel to panel?
No, I approach all my storytelling like music, the way you break up, the panels and the compositions. It's all very musical for me. The only difficulty with vertical was I only got paid half as much.
I think that we will have to give a 1, because money is important, right?
Wow. Hilarious.
A page is a page, even if it's only half the width.
Steve,
Rob Perry just said real quick in the chat,
sure.
like It's a Bird by Stephen Teddy. And so just to spend 2 seconds on what Shelly was saying about Karen, that was a Vertigo book with Superman in it. And when I pitched it to Karen, she's like, they won't let us do that. We cannot use DC characters anymore, and we definitely can't use Superman. And I said, please go ask Paul and take him this letter I wrote explaining why it has to be. And she did, and they approved it. It's like she wasn't afraid to go bang on people's doors and ask for things. Neither was Shelly, and that's why good stuff got done there.
Yeah. There you go. I've had nothing but respect for Karen and Shelly well before I met either of them. And no, they were really continue to be important voices in comics. That's why I'm glad Shelly has branched off with Philip and the way you guys do the off-register books. Anytime there's a new off-register project, they're always here talking about a geezer and all of Shelly's editorial adventures and Philip's individual projects over the years as well. We
could spend the rest of the evening talking about It's a Bird. I mean, there's so much significance in all of these projects. They're all so unique. They're all so celebrated, and it's amazing. It's an amazing run, and it's a tragedy that it no longer exists in that way.
I like what Kari says here. I started collecting right after Vertigo came to exist. I had to start picking up extra shifts at work. Yeah, well, and honestly, I came to Vertigo late 90s and really was kind of early 90s, checked out of comics for a little while, but came back in the late 90s. And it was just nice to see that the industry had grown, or at least the medium, and people like yourselves had suddenly, beyond the usual mainstream stuff, found this other lane to express unique ideas. And I'm like, well, that's what I've been waiting for is, I still love my standard superhero fare, but I was ready for something different and something a little more art challenging and story challenging. And guys like you, all three of you, delivered that.
Well, you can also look at how Vertigo expanded out through the industry. For instance, X-Force. Shelly put me and Peter Milligan together for the first time on a Shade the Changing Man story in the very first Vertigo anthology, Vertigo Jam. And that indirectly led to X-Force and Axel Alonso. And with that Vertigo mindset, and we did something very Vertigo-ish with the X-Men. And then with Ecstatics killing the comics code. And, that's that rock and roll spirit. Just that the punk just plow through and it works. And it's electric and it's exciting. It's fresh.
And it seemed like Marvel for the longest time was chasing the Vertigo model. And I remember over the years, the Max line, the Max line really wasn't like Vertigo, even though it was, this hard R line and everything. And I forget the name of the book that Colleen Doran and Straczynski made for Marvel. But I remember that being touted as, this is our attempt to kind of, they didn't blatantly say it. Really, the creators said it more so, that this was their moment to try and do, stuff. Yeah, Derek, you're right, actually. And then prior to Vertigo, of course, the Epic line certainly was amazing stuff. Yes, thank you, Rob. Book of Souls. That's exactly what I'm talking about with Colleen and Joe Straczynski. So yes, absolutely.
I think the Epic line was a precursor to the Max line. I think Epic was more of a late 80s, early 90s.
Oh, yeah.
Like Archie Goodwin, Moonshadow. And in fact, Karen was responsible for getting some of the old Epic books over to Vertigo.
I didn't realize that. Wow.
Yeah.
Was Carl Potts in charge of Epic?
It was Archie Goodwin initially, and Carl did Alien Legion and stuff for it.
Okay, because my very first work for Marvel was Epic with the Everyman and the late great Bernie Moreau.
Oh wow!
Yeah, and again, that has that Vertigo spirit. It just kind of just something unique, special, personal.
Yep, and subversive or irreverent, just like nothing you haven't seen or felt before.
Yeah, it's not about being the hard R. It's about being pure, not pure, but
it's that point of view that Shelly talked about. It's Mike doing a Mike thing, Steve doing a Steve thing, and not trying to put it through a grist mill and make it into a corporate thing.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah, it was the opposite of the movie industry, where that's a big hit, so let's do 5 more exactly like that. No, with Vertigo, it's like this creator has brought something unique. Again, I'll use It's a Bird as an example. That was able to exist in the way it was intended. That's what Vertigo did. This is what we're trying to make. Okay, good. You go make that.
Go ahead, Shell.
Oh, no, so sorry.
No, please.
I think it's also worth mentioning that we had standards. There was a really high bar. There were a certain number of books that we had on the slate each year, and every editor was required to have a very intense workflow. So usually it was between 3 and 4 monthly books and 2 to 3 original graphic novels. That was a lot of hustling. You had to be fast on your feet, and you had to make quick decisions, and you could not have a fear of hiring or firing. Comics have to be in motion 24/7. I used to always say they needed to be watered and fed. If you stop, they fall apart. And so that's what I always think about, back to the Vertigo days. I mean, all of them. From the day I walked into that office in December of 92, I hit the ground running and I didn't stop. I didn't want to, and I couldn't, because the best thing about comics is passing the baton, whether you have 2 people on a book, whether it's an editor and someone like Mike who can write and draw and color and do everything, or whether it's a whole team. It's getting everyone.
Well, I can't color.
Yeah, you can
have it out, literally.
color.
Hey, Laura. Laura is my not so secret weapon. My stuff would be garbage without her.
Mike, I want to take a quick minute because I wasn't sure in terms of scheduling, but I have to acknowledge Batman Dark Age just wrapped up. We talked about Superman Space Age, and in fact, Mark Russell just a couple weeks ago on this show told us that Wonder Woman Golden Age is
we're
at
allowed
least
to say that.
Well, he already released it here on Word Balloon. So until I get a cease and desist from Clark Bull and Company at DC, I'll again, the cat's out of the bag. Sorry, kids, but no, really, what you all did, including Laura, unbelievable. Hey, don't do that, Shell. Shame on you.
I'm just kidding.
I know. She gave me a 2.
20. She was.
But no, honestly,
to go with it.
Really, you wrapped up Dark Age, another great miniseries, just like Superman and stuff. But yeah, tell me about that experience working with Mark on the Ages books.
Dream come true. I mean, it's the holy trinity of DC Comics, right? This trilogy in the works, and we actually have plans beyond a trilogy. But I learned a long time ago to let the publisher do the announcing and marketing, and when asked, we'll step in. But what a thrill! It's like childhood dreams coming true. And again, it all started with these two. It's like they made these dreams happen. So they set the stage, they opened the door, and I just ran through. And like Shelly said, I don't dare stop. Because it's just too much fun, and I don't want to lose the thread.
Well, I'm ready for another Seagle book, but before I get there, while we're on the Ages books, one of the great things is to reflect not only the origins of Batman and Superman through the lens of the time period that you and Mark have chosen through these things, but also some of the other pop culture references you can make within these stories and stuff. I mean, how much of that is you going to Mark? Hey, by the way, let's not forget, Lenny Bruce was around at this time. Maybe it'd be fun to have a Lenny Bruce-ish sort of character in Batman Dark Age, for example.
Yeah. Well, Mark's a fellow Oregonian. We've had the good fortune of being able to walk and talk and dream this stuff in person together. We literally, with Superman Space Age, walked off of the hill into downtown Eugene, did a Animal House tour. And because Animal House was filmed just off our hill here, and just what we wanted to do, what our intentions were, and there was that Vulcan mind meld that just put it all together. And at this point, it's just I know that when Mark, throws another idea at me, another script at me, that I'm just going to eat it up. It's a very comfortable place to be, but not comfortable in a lazy way. Comfortable in a invigorating way and a liberating way. So, and I love that it's been received the way that it has, and just bigger and better things. It's amazing to me that I'm still doing this for a living.
Mike, I want to know, how many pages of comics have you drawn? Because it must be over 25,000.
Yeah, I haven't counted. But I did want to mention about the formats, because how Steve was always breaking format, and even with it, when he would solicit a project, he would come up with a very clever way to have something that unfolded a certain way and revealed, the pitch a certain way. And that always stuck with me. And that's why I did Red Rocket 7 the way I did, where it was the history of rock and roll told through the eyes of an alien clone. So let's make it a square, like a record album. And like, people, how are we going to do it? Like, if you can't fit it on your shelves, what happened, a lot of the best stores it was a point of purchase item. They put it next to the cash register.
Yeah.
So
I do remember Vertigo being slotted that way at certain stores as well here in Chicago. So yeah, I can appreciate
there's
that.
always a way. And the point of breaking a format is to break away from the format, and have a little spotlight thrown on it.
And every time we tried to do something, it was always a good fight. There was never any hesitation, I think, for anyone in the Vertigo group to not just go for it when it came to a really unique project with Gravitas.
And Shelly always went to bat.
Thanks,
for
Eli.
House of Secrets covers, which we wanted to format like no comics covers had ever been formatted. And it was a fight every single time we said, here's the next thing we want to do. And now all comics covers look like those covers. It's just like,
go figure.
Yeah.
I was always armed with a good pair of tap shoes. I would either do a song and dance, but you know what? I also brought in a lot of chocolate and champagne, depending on who I had to charm. So a lot of it was, I knew there was quality, and there was content.
Steve go?
With he was upset about that.
Oh, there you go. Boom. Look at that.
The score.
Seagle brought it for the audio audience. Seagle dug into his collection and found the album formatted Red Rocket 7 cover.
It was nearby. I just thought I'd grab it.
That's great.
Which
That's
also
excellent.
has Andy Warhol in it. The Velvet Underground. And
I wanted to ask also about another fantastic book that Steve and Kelly Jones did, The Crusades. And again, kind of like American Virgin, I think relevant themes that are continuing to play out, sadly, 25 years later in our world. I mean, your protagonist is working at a dying newspaper, trying to get to the bottom of what's happening with this man from the Crusades that's, going out there,
And a schlocky radio host is telling fake news that people think is more interesting and gets more cred.
Unbelievably prescient.
Very familiar. Very familiar. Yeah.
Aren't you the book I did? Sorry, the book I did with Tim Sale at Kamiko, which was about Amazon deforestation. Rest in peace, Tim. But that book tragically is always still relevant. It's just like, I wish these things were not relevant. I wish the stuff in American Virgin, which had a trans character, a good 20 years before that was being talked about, and all the issues that was about, were not still issues, but they fucking always are.
Yeah.
It's true.
Derek Donovan, and I'm really glad you're watching us, Derek, says, I'm curious what Shelly remembers being the wildest burn the midnight oil to get the book out the door situation was.
I think I know the answer, but I'm not going to say.
I'm going to let Steve talk first and see if we are mind readers.
I will just say that I think it is one of the issues of the most successful Vertigo book of all time.
House of Secrets.
No, that was not. That was definitely not.
Think and say. Okay.
My stuff that's late was always like not on the schedule yet. I think this is asking the question like of a monthly that's coming out. Like,
tell me what Steve, just tell me what your answer is.
What's your guess?
I just know that sometimes when I visited the Vertigo offices in New York, which wasn't that often, that you would be getting a single page of script on a certain book at a time. and that they would be days apart sometimes. And that to me seemed really slow.
Well, I can think about 5 different books where that might have been the case. But I'm going to be honest and tell you that there was one issue of House of Secrets. And honestly, this again is part of what I think of as Steve's genius contribution to comics. Honestly, he was always one step ahead of everyone else and so avant-garde in his approach. There was an issue where we had to explain to Todd Klein, our letterer, that we wanted to do something different with the word balloons and the thought balloons. And Steve wanted a word that said "say" next to a thought balloon. And I think there might have been some miscommunication, and it was very late.
Oh, yeah.
The printer. So I took
it was the think say. So they would say, think this, say this. Yeah.
And I took it upon myself to make the corrections with my X-Acto knife and my glue stick because the production department was long gone. So I worked well into the night so that by the next day, the boards could be scanned and could go to the printer. So Steve.
I don't think I ever properly said thank you. So I'm going to send you this fence post that came off of my fence outside. Thank you.
I would rather have that Red Rocket 7 issue that you just
Drinking the Red Rocket 7. That's mine.
I love that the conversation is inspiring everyone to get up and find issues, because much like we lost Seagle for a second when he was getting his Rocket 7 cover to show us and everything, Allred is obviously digging in his man cave.
Look at Allred's chair. Look how cool that conical spheroid chair is. Like,
I hope it's comfortable.
I was one of those.
Because I imagine he's there. You go. Oh, look at that, everybody! Zooming in.
Oh, look at that beauty!
Wow. Yeah. Wow. Mike.
Where it all began.
Oh, there's Kafka. Man.
Look at you.
Outstanding.
So sweet.
And great graphic design.
Well, that's Image has been very kind to reprint most of my older stuff, and House of Secrets is now also back, but it's only been put out in Spanish so far. So,
now is there any sort of issue, Steve, with House of Secrets, given that is a DC title?
The proper this does not say House of Secrets should be an answer to your question.
Okay, and should it ever come out in English language, I would imagine you can't call it House of Secrets. Would be my guess.
I actually licensed the title from them for $1 with the understanding that if the rights ever reverted, I could not use that title. And at the time I was like, they'll never revert these rights, but now I've got them and I'm like, okay, what's the new title? So Teddy and I have decided on something. We will do something.
When it's time. Yeah, when it's time. I won't Wonder Woman Golden Age you like I did Russell in Allred.
Now, see, where'd Shelly? I'm going to go. Shelly, come back. I have to go get some cooler stuff. I have even cooler stuff I can show. Now, Mike's up in the ante. I'll be back.
Okay. Oh, well, I was going to ask him a question. That's all right. Allred, we'll talk. What is there anything coming up beyond the Wonder Woman thing? Do you have time? Did you have time to do something between Dark Age, or what's next for you?
I'm doing a Minor Threats one shot. The Patton Oswalt. Reuniting with Matt Fraction. It's a one shot called Wingman, and it's brilliant and bizarre, and I can't wait for people to see it.
I'm excited. I'm recording a talk with Patton tomorrow. Primarily, we're talking about that Abrams book that he and his partner curated a bunch of Marvel stories, and a lot from the current era. And right now the title escapes me, but it's we're going to record that tomorrow. But I was going to ask him briefly about Minor Threats, and then hopefully have him back when things are really rolling out.
I love that guy so much. We were in Portland with him not that long ago, and he knows how much I've just been a huge fan of him from day one. I remember the first time he was introduced by Janine Garofalo on a comedy special, and it's like, who is this guy? And he just continues to surprise and amaze and provoke thought. I just love the heck out of that guy.
That's cool. All right, Shelly's got the iZombie, one of the omnibus with that beautiful.
I've been blessed to have almost everything I've ever done be in an omnibus.
Wow! Oh, wow! And then hold on, Seagle's got.
It's a page from.
Is that the original?
It's the original, yeah.
From.
Oh, wow.
Graphic music.
Oh, wow. Outstanding. And here, another
I've got an original by Shelly. Oh, Shelly's showing.
I've got names.
That's from American Virgin, I'm assuming.
Look at that.
No, that's
Is that more zombie?
Zombie.
Oh, that's the brains. Yeah, of course. All right,
And
I'm with you now.
Wait, Mike, do you remember the ad copy
Nice.
was
Shelly
mine?
Bond original art. She made me a 30th birthday card.
Oh, wow.
What year was that?
When I was 30. I don't want to say how many years ago.
Oh,
I feel you, Steve. I just had a birthday. I totally understand.
50 years ago.
Oh man,
Look at that.
That's
Holy
Jaguar Stories cover number 3 or 4 or 2. I don't know.
Look at the case. Look at the case. How
I
crazy.
like to think there's a massive increase in quality between what Steve was holding up and what Shelly's holding.
You always say that, but you've always been good. But one of the things you do, Mike, that I've always loved, I always talk about you to new artists. I go, Mike Allred will go, I am super into Bernie Moreau, and I'm going to take him apart, and I'm going to push him through all of the stuff I do for a couple of months. And when I'm done, my art's not going to look like Bernie. It's going to look like all the cool stuff that I like about Bernie in my own lens. And you've just done that from the get-go. So you look at Charles Burns, or you look at anybody who's really influenced you, and you have a moment where you're like playing around with them in your hand and your brain, and then you come out the other side and you're still Mike Allred, but you've got some new stuff in your toolbox. And it's just, at the beginning it was just the Mike toolbox, and now it's the Mike and everything you've seen in the world toolbox. It still looks like Mike, but you've done a lot to constantly make yourself over.
Mike, how much did Ramona Fradon and her style inform your style? Because I really was trying to make some Silver Age connections to what you brought to your style, and she comes to mind as someone who at least played in similar ideas.
Massively. There's Joe Strummer. My older brother Lee, I wouldn't even know what a comic book is if it wasn't for him. And my earliest memory is waking up in a hospital bed covered with comic books, and it's because Lee knocked me off a table and I got a concussion. But from that moment on, comic books have just always been ever present. And Ramona Fradon was one of the, I remember an Aquaman special in particular that I just kept with me everywhere I went. And I just loved, and was able to meet her and tell her in person how influential and celebrated she was to us, me and my brother.
That's great. That's excellent, man. All right, good question for Shelly. Well, all three of you, really. I would include Steve in this, even though Buddy is only talking about Shelly and Mike. But Shelly and Mike, you're kind of Kickstarter badasses. How do you feel about transitioning to that publishing model? Is it good for you all? Steve, I don't think you've flirted yet with Kickstarter, have you?
Not yet. Contemplating.
What do you guys think?
I know absolutely nothing about it. I just entrust people like Chris Stevens with the Marvel art of Michael Allred book, and Christopher Irving, who is my merch guy. He always has fun ideas for merch, so I just give them the reins, and I get to sit back and watch what they do with it, and it's so from what I understand, I don't know how to do it. I really don't know how it works, but I love the independent aspect about it. I love that if you can reach the people that are going to support your work, they throw down right up front, and you have this idea of how much support you have right out of the gate. That I appreciate. I don't really understand how it works beyond that.
I got to say, I think it's the new frontier, and it's the best way to self-publish your work, whether it's through Kickstarter or crowdfunder. There are other companies that actually have, slightly different methods to how you actually run a campaign and how many days you run a campaign. But I've really enjoyed doing my Kickstarters. First one was in 2016. I've done 10 so far. I love it because if it's successful, there's no one to blame but myself. If it's not successful, there's no one to blame but myself.
Sure.
And I say that in jest. I mean, there are a lot of people who help me along the way. Like you, John, you're always there to help promote my work. But honestly,
go support Doppelganger. Woo!
Indeed, that's what I was going to put up the image while you're talking here. But go ahead.
But I think the greatest thing about it is that, you have the opportunity to put your money where your mouth is and deliver on your promise. I mean, that's what it is at the end of the day. And I don't care what anyone says. Like, people will tell you, oh, you can't make a comic book. You can't do it yourself. It'll take you 3 years. It'll take, too much time. You need to get a lot of permissions. That's not true. You don't need anyone's permission but your own. And you need a community. That's what self-publishing is all about. And I think we started out this amazing conversation by looking back, to how the three of us met, through Kamiko, or Steve and Mike before Kamiko, but we all kind of were united through this incredible indie publisher that was fearless, and came out of the black and white boom in the 80s and struggled along and published terrific projects that to this day I think resonate, because everyone who made comics at Kamiko and at other indie publishers poured their heart and soul and their blood and sweat into their work. So that's what you do on Kickstarter. You have to step it up. You have to constantly be on your game. It's all about maintenance. You have to be organized, and you have to plan ahead. You really shouldn't launch until you're at least 75% done with your project. I've learned over the years, the more prep you do, the easier it will be every day when you're P.T. Barnum, because that's who you are when you're running a campaign. You are constantly on the clock. You need to have your graphics ready. You need to have outreach. And most of all, you have to make sure that the people who are going to be interested in your work, that you're connecting with them on some level. So fingers crossed. It's the third part of the trilogy, but the best new thing about Kickstarter is that they have an add-on feature. So for anyone who had no idea that I did a book called Filth and Grammar or a book called Fast Times in Comic Book Editing, you can actually grab those when you decide to back iDoppelganger. And also, right now, I feel really fortunate. We smashed our first funding goal, which was 20 grand. We did it in 5 days. So I wanted to thank every backer, anyone who actually threw money at the campaign or even just shared the campaign, because I know it's really tough right now for everyone. We're coming up on the holidays. So if you backed or if you shared, thank you so much. But the cool thing about what we're doing now is we've got until December 14th at 9 a.m. when the campaign is done, we have the opportunity to actually hit a few stretch goals. So right now, I think we just like an hour ago, we smashed the second stretch goal. So for all physical copy backers, you're not only getting a PDF along with your purchase, but we upped the page count from 160 to 176. And that's an extra signature because everybody
Those
came
pages
together.
are late. Where are my pages?
What?
I'm being your editor. Those pages better be done, young lady.
Those pages, I'm waiting for you to reply to confirm, deny.
That's true.
Mike already got back to me. John, I think you're going to love the feature. I've got this one feature called Confirm Deny. It's in every chapter.
Yes, I was going to go through this. Please tell people about this section.
Well, I basically wrote 5 or 6 statements that might be true, might be untrue, and they're so ridiculous. And I just sent them to 8 or 9 of my favorite freelancers. And I pretty much just said, pick one and confirm, deny, or write your own. So everybody turned in their work on time or early. And in fact, Mike, you get another 10 because you answered you had a confirm, deny for every single statement.
Wow.
And there was Steve, who hasn't
Teacher's
even
pet.
replied to my email.
I didn't know they were due.
That's right. I had the same problem, Steve, with one of my Shelly assignments. Don't sweat it. You're not alone.
I sent you that first email in July.
I feel like I had lunch with you and you could have mentioned it.
I have something to PT Barnum about.
Please.
Yeah.
Steve's actually wearing it on his chest. You might want to talk to my eldest son about this.
Zooming in. Boom.
Because that was the first time I really saw somebody doing a Kickstarter thing, and for anybody that's kickstarted Spaceface, it's almost done. He had a goal to there you see that are those add-ons. Is that an add-on?
You gave me this a long time ago. A pin, or Han gave it to me.
So Spaceface is the name of your son's documentary about you. Am I right?
It's I'm the thread. He's interviewed so many people about. It's largely about existence and people's perception of existence. What they think life is about, and of course, comic books are brought through there because most of the people he interviewed are professional, comic book creators, or have some kind of relationship with me, or have collaborated with me, and I haven't been allowed to see any of it, but he almost got it in time for Sundance. It didn't quite make the deadline, so he kind of stretched out a little bit after that he missed that goal. But he tells me it's almost done, and I know largely what I'm excited about based on the people that have told me what they talked about, and it's very existential, yet it also has this celebration of art, this art form that we love so much. So I'm really excited to see, and oh man, talk about doing everything yourself. I mean, he's done the music for it, editing it. He even went old school with, those old Pink Floyd oil light shows, psychedelic light shows.
Sure.
Like back in the day, where they would throw all that weird psychedelic.
Yeah.
He learned how to do that for certain effects, and then applied it to new digital effects, and so there's all kinds of very creative things that he's shown me these different pieces, but as a whole I haven't been able to see what he's put together.
Did he play the music using his Gear guitar pick?
Yeah.
Oh wow.
Yep. He
engineered
engineered the second Gear album. He's brilliant. He can do everything. It's amazing.
Dean Haspel enjoying the show tonight, and
Dean.
Yay, Dean! Love Dean.
Absolutely.
Chest face. Look for Dean Haspel's chest face. I think that's Kickstarter, right, Dean?
Yes, it is. And we just we had another word, and this is why, man, Word Balloon. We try to stay
Red Hook.
all these great projects that everybody's doing, and yeah, that's no. Dean was just on a couple of weeks ago talking about chest face. Chest face is fantastic. Shell, I want to point out the other things that you've got included in iDoppelganger: a timeline through the 21st century. You've got secret histories of imprints like Minx, your YA graphic novel line, and your work on Young Animal, Gerard Way's group of books, and of course,
thank you for that.
And IDW's Black Crown imprint that you did.
Absolutely. Yeah, I'm a big fan of secret histories and origin stories. And I think it's great because to this day, people still ask me, how do you find people? If you find a writer, how do you find the perfect artist? And, I say the same thing all the time. Keep your eyes open, roll up your sleeves, dig through the stacks, comic book stores, bookstores, record stores, go to conventions, pick up zines. You can't sit on your butt and just wait for people to come to you. And in fact, I must give props to two amazing artists who are really the heart and soul of iDoppelganger. One of them, John, I know you know already, Imogen Mangle. She's been with me on my other two books, both Filth and Grammar and Fast Times, and she's phenomenal. I met her when I was working with a group of British people on Heavy Rotation. Sophie Dodgson unfortunately couldn't finish a job that she agreed to do for me, and she asked if she could bring in a really terrific young artist. And I said, well, can I see her work? So she showed me her sample, and I fell off my chair. She was 23, right out of art school, and I knew she had chops. So I said, sure. And I wanted to see what she can do. And from one illustration, I hired her to be my main artist on Filth and Grammar. So she's continuing on with me, and she has a few stories in a Doppelganger. But I also can't wait to introduce a new artist that I found just recently, about a year ago. Her name is Art by Lid. That's what she goes by. And true story, I was on Instagram and I was following a friend of my son's from many, many years ago. So I was looking at what this young woman was up to, and I noticed that someone named Art by Lid was following her, and I loved the style of her art. So I followed her, and then I reached out to her. And strangely enough, John and Mike, this book, which is called Record Thieves Like Us, is the first project that I did with Lindsay Thomason, who was Art by Lid. And it was our trial run. I didn't know if she was interested in doing sequential art, but I hired her to do some spot illustrations. And we put together this book, which is basically 20 records that changed my life. And I was so impressed with her professionalism. And I was so impressed with just how she seemed to get like everything that I was trying to say about my 20 favorite albums. And here's the real clincher, John. She is less than half my age. So I met her and she was 25. Okay. We're not going to reveal how old I am. I'm younger than Steve.
You look great for 64. You look fantastic.
Well, Steve, once again, we give Steve a -3 for his on nuts. But there's something else that I have to add here. And it's this. It's happy.
Oh, thanks, honey. Thank you. That's really nice. Thank you. That's very sweet.
Happy birthday to you.
And many more.
Happy birthday to you, John.
Thanks, guys.
What? Here's a gift for you.
Oh my gosh.
I didn't have time. I didn't have time to send it. Anybody think they know what it is? Oh my
looks
God.
like that book you just held up a second ago.
Might very well be. Yay! Oh my gosh, I'm excited to read that. Thank you, Shell.
John,
Holy cow.
It's not only signed by me, but it's also signed by Brian Ferry.
No.
I got you my extra gear guitar pick because I actually have 2 of them.
Oh man. I'm gonna probably kill the buzz right now by asking. And again, because I think you're all like such good natured, like, you know, new wave and you know, the music we all grew up with and stuff. HBO on Friday dropped this new music documentary about yacht rock, all the easy listening stuff.
Yeah.
All right, good.
Baby.
Are you dying? Are you dying over that?
I love it because exactly, very good. Mike gets it. Well, you know, guys, and Shell knows a little bit. I was a music director of an adult contemporary station during the heart of the yacht rock years of the 80s. And so I'm like, all right, let's see what the kids have to say about something that I actually am kind of an expert on. Because our radio station was a small station, but we reported to Radio and Records, our playlist every week. So we helped compile their top 30 for the adult contemporary format. And in fact, I can even say, unfortunately, I had this ridiculous station manager. I'd use worse adjectives, but I'll keep it clean. He hated Man in the Mirror by Michael Jackson. And Epic, the label, calls me up and it's like, we can't be number 1 on the R&R adult contemporary charts without your support. And I'm like, my hands are tied. I mean, we played it, but we didn't play it in heavy rotation. Shell's aware of heavy rotation. And I'm like, you don't understand. Literally, it's my job. You know, they'll fire me if I play it more. And they're like, well, that really sucks. And I'm like, I know. But this yacht rock thing is fantastic. So
2 quick comments to make based on the chat. One is Derek Donovan just saying yacht rock. Christos Gage, I believe it was, invited me to a concert a couple years ago of the Yacht Rock is Back reunion. So I got to see all of the classic yacht rock acts live. They still got the yacht rock happening. And then Casey right above that said, Brian Ferry with lots of exclamation marks. And I think it should not go unsaid that for Shelly's birthday a few decades ago, I stood in line at Tower Records for most of the day to get Brian Ferry to sign Bête Noire or Boys and Girls or something for Shelly so that she could meet him by 1 degree of separation.
Oh, that's great. That's like, well, Shelly knows my Brian Ferry story where he came to our radio station one Saturday night and literally unannounced at the back door, and I opened it, and like he just stepped out of the Avalon music video.
What?
Brian Ferry, perfect hair.
Sure.
And Steve knows, because Steve knows my history in radio. This is when I was at XRT in the Score.
Yeah.
And yeah, he was going to talk to Terry Hemmert, one of our fine DJs.
But the best part of this story, you've just omitted the best part of the story, and it goes something like this. John's at the door. He opens the door. It's Brian Ferry. Hello, John. Hello. And where's Terry? She's in the back of the room, and she's like, John, I got this. I got this.
Get away, John. Stop talking to Brian Ferry. Don't worry, it's for me. I'm like, shut up. Nice to meet you, Brian. How are you? I'm like, relax. You're gonna have him for a half hour for an interview. Let me talk to him for 2 seconds.
Many times. That's like my favorite story. That should be a graphic novel.
It was like living in a monkey's video or episode. Like for 9 years, it was these amazing music people and sports people: Tina Turner, John Fogerty, Elvis Costello. I was just telling a friend today, the day Boss Skaggs came in, and I'm like, oh my God, it's Boss Skaggs. Good, and you know, Steve. I mean, you're obviously a yacht rock guy. Silk Degrees.
JoJo's on my playlist. I got it. We're good.
Come on, man. I mean, that's why I'm sure Shell's like, yeah, great, fantastic. Tell me about Huey Lewis and the News while you're talking, John. Fantastic.
Look, I also still know who's playing right now. You just gotta stay with music. You can't. As soon as you go, I don't listen to new music. You're dead.
Amen. You're right. You're absolutely right about that. So yeah, but that's funny, Mike. Yeah, I'm glad you brought up sailing. A big part of that documentary. It's not too far from paradise. At least it's not for me.
For yacht rock, isn't it?
It really does typify that. And although they kind of lumped in Parrot Heads, help me, Margaritaville, Jimmy Buffett. And while the vibe is there, I never really associated him with the. I mean, that's his own thing.
It's not the rock part of that.
No,
but
no.
Casey mentioned
controversy. Yacht rock controversy.
Shelly would like this part of the interview to disappear.
we can wrap. That's all. That's fine.
No,
well, bringing it back to glam rock.
Yes, Mike. What am I doing? Mike knows what I'm doing. Bowie had this infamous ocean hand movement. Mike, you know what I'm talking about? The Return of the Thin White Duke.
Oh yeah. And by the way, humble brag, Bowie referenced my work in Killer Star, so New Killer Star.
Oh, nice.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's amazing, Mike. Seriously.
How do I know this? How have I become blank years of age?
Because I'm so humble.
Tell us exactly
what
you're.
Yeah, it's Red Rocket 7. In the lyric is "I saw my life in a comic," and he's referencing Red Rocket 7 from there. So
that's amazing. Oh, dude, when Black Star came out, it was like, oh, this is so great. And then he died like 6 weeks later or whatever.
It's the most amazing artistic last chapter I've ever seen. It's it just echoes in so many ways, and it was all intentional. I mean, he knew he was dying. It's moving, and it's haunting, and it's powerful.
Stand by. Sell me in.
Yeah. Button eyes.
Mike, I'm going to be sending you this one.
Cult of
Voodoo. This one because of what you just said.
That's like an homage to Black Star. Yeah,
it is.
On the right.
It's a great set of pins by Cult of Voodoo, and just terrific enamel pins. Since Steve started the enamel pin trend tonight.
Indeed, on the video, yes. Gore Vidal with an interesting comment about Vertigo.
The Gore Vidal? That's amazing.
Well, we break out the Ouija board for certain comments. Vertigo comics are like classic novels meant to be read, reread, and read. Just like the musical artists you're talking about. Bowie, Ferry, the best of music meant to be listened to forever. Indeed, sir. And he also said Red Rocket 7, awesome or excellent. Very cool.
Wow.
Yeah, I'm with you. Oh, that's interesting. Eli says Bowie's mic drop with Black Star is second only to the Final Warren Zevon album, another great artist.
The Final Warren Zevon David Letterman appearance, which is staggeringly.
Oh,
hard.
that was so. Yes, I remember that.
Yeah. No, I was pretty lucky, man.
Loved Warren Zevon. Loved him.
And really, Mike, Steve knows because Steve lived here in Chicago for many years.
I actually never lived in Chicago, but I knew all your Chicago friends.
Oh, I assumed that you were with your wife here as well, but maybe not.
Nope. No, she was rejecting me at that time, but I still hung out around everybody.
But it all worked out, so that's good.
I was in Indiana.
Oh, okay. Well, that's all right. Was it Northwest Indiana? So really,
Muncie, which was
that's close enough. Come on, that's fine. I'm saying it's fine, Steve. Don't worry. We don't have that hatred for Wisconsin and Indiana like the other states do for Illinois.
Oh, I didn't hate it. I was just freezing the whole time.
Well, that's
Laura and I lived in Indianapolis for 3 months before we got to the Air Force Academy.
Really?
Wow.
I didn't even know that.
Wow.
Yeah.
But XRT
is Terminator came out, and I think that's when Purple Rain came out too.
Oh, sure.
Did you hear? Sorry, it's just another digression, but did you hear that Wendy and Lisa is Lisa the guitar player? I never could tell which one was it. Whoever she was, she played on Purple Rain those tracks. You know, they recorded them live at a club. That was the first time she'd ever played them live, and those are the takes they used in the movie.
Oh my God!
Nice.
Wow.
Yeah.
I was amazed that Wendy and Lisa became musical score producers for television shows, and I want to say Nurse Betty, the show that oh God bless it, the actress from The Sopranos that played Carmela.
Yeah.
Edie Falco. Edie Falco's show Nurse Betty. That Wendy and Lisa did the music for the TV series and stuff, which blew my mind. You know.
Yeah.
No, talented people. But yeah, XRT was really like a grown-up college radio station. And that's the best way to describe it and stuff. And really so everything I learned in college radio, I was able to apply when I was working at XRT. It was pretty amazing. So
anyway. And I think that's what at least I'm trying to do with the comics that Philip and I are doing on Off Register Press.
Yeah.
You know, it's a bespoke, tiny publishing imprint, and it's really for our personal work. I mean, I really hope to put together a few more anthologies in the coming years. Got a list of so many I've wanted to do, but right now I've got to get this final part of the trilogy out there, and I'm so grateful for everyone who's backed, and for Mike and Steve for riding shotgun with me through my whole career so far. You guys are the best. So cheers.
Right back at you.
As we're recording this, indeed, we've got, the metaphorical raising our glasses from Mike and myself. There's 10 days left in the campaign for I Doppelganger. And really, these guys are part of it. Wilma!
Laura, poke your head in here.
Oh, that'd be great.
Mike did, because that was a bigger interruption than my previous one.
Just come say hi real fast.
Yeah, just say hi real fast. Mike, it would be great truly to have you and Laura on sometime.
She's getting in the shower. Just say hi. You don't have to
just take the camera, Mike.
Am I? No.
That's awesome. That's fantastic. Well, Laura, just know that the Word Balloon audience has nothing but love for your work, if you can hear us. Well, no, it's great, man. Truly.
She always looks 26 years old. She just doesn't want to make us look bad.
I'm assuming she's
like that make her self-conscious about ever showing her face anywhere.
I'm assuming she's in the documentary, right, Mike?
Oh, I'm sure she is.
All right, I would hope so. Yeah.
Did Han interview you guys?
No.
Oh, he's got to. Okay, he's gonna have to. He was gonna go to California. He was gonna interview Gerard Way, and he was gonna interview you guys, and then COVID happened.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
But I thought maybe he caught up with you somewhere else at a show or something.
Shelly's been telling me about the project for years now. Yeah. So
Space Face.
I really enjoyed talking with Han when he was kickstarting, because he actually reached out to me for some advice, and so I did an interview with him and helped him do some marketing. So that's how I really got to know him a little bit better. And
I know he talked to you. And by the way, you have a rock star in the making with Spencer. Been always seeing him rocking out.
Yeah.
Those
He
cool
is-
pics on Instagram.
yeah, he's doing great. He is in his second year in college right now, studying music industry. Does it mean
Just poke in real fast.
Laura, yay!
Hi, Laura.
we're live on
Commit slow when you're not on camera.
She gonna make it in or no? She's not gonna be on camera.
She's wave. Why are you waving?
No, I can't see you wave.
Can't see you wave, but that's all right. There we go.
Here's Laura.
Exactly.
I gotta go.
Okay.
Bye.
Bye, Laura. Thank you. That's fantastic, man. Jesus.
But little baby steps. Eventually,
I respect
she'll-
that. It's all right.
Monday, but
Rachel Dodson is in the same camp as Laura Allred in terms of. No.
I'm wiped
No, I
out.
didn't tell them that. Should I tell them that?
Oh my gosh, I'm wiped out.
Poor thing. And she's making you dinner. Shame on you, Mike. You get a frying pan in the head, man.
Actually, she's not making me dinner. What she's making is for herself.
Ah, even worse. Wow.
I said something smells really good, but it's not for me.
It was Brussels sprouts.
Oh,
we love Brussels
it is
sprouts.
for me. She makes really good. I'm not. Her Brussels sprouts are edible. Let me say that.
Oh, I
I'm the same way,
understand.
man. But did you know they got genetically changed over the past 20 years? They taste totally different than they tasted when you were a kid.
I didn't know that.
Is that
really?
true?
That's another. We don't need to go into it today, but that is true. Yeah.
Holy cow.
Wow.
So I also love them now, and that was the food I would sit at the table until the moon crashed into the earth to not eat when I was a
I
kid.
agree.
Yeah. Same here.
I would imagine that, Steve, you would actually probably take them and, like, use them on a spoon to flick at your brother. That's what
I would. That was a food I would like hide under the tablecloth and stuff, and then they'd find them days later, moldy, and
Right.
I could not eat one. But now I love them.
You would.
Yeah, Laura's have a smoky
nice.
flavor.
No, they've
Yeah,
cracked the code on how to prepare them that they are more edible and a lot more fun to eat when they make them with
and it
bacon
smells
and other
really
ways.
good.
I'm with you. Hilarious. All right, welcome back
We
to
generally
Brussels
make
sprouts.
our own meals.
Next week on Word Balloon, we're gonna examine okra.
Show.
No Brussels sprouts were harmed in the making of I Doppelganger. I just want it known here.
Well, we know that. Shelley, have you opened up yourself to eat any vegetables yet?
Hey,
Kelly, we don't want you to get rickets or anything like that. What the hell?
Steve is confusing me with someone else because he's so much older than me, and he's a bit.
That's true.
It's my son who doesn't eat vegetables. I'm all about salads and greens and healthy food and Diet Coke.
We're all within like a couple years of each other, right? I mean,
I'm
pretty
much older, tragically.
I don't think that much older, Steve.
I
could be wrong.
am, John. I turned 60 next year, so I'm closer to you.
Okay, well there you go. No, then we are around the same age. That's true. Yeah, I just turned 60, Mike. So yeah.
And yesterday, correct?
Monday.
Okay.
Well, I can say I'm 6 days older than Laura, and that's all I'm allowed to say.
All right, fair enough. That's cool. Too funny. Well, everybody, again, this was terrific. And I mean, good Lord, I'd go hours with all of you because there's so much else to talk about. People in the chat, Steve, acknowledged Sandman Mystery Theater and how great that was, and it's one of my favorite things.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, we've had you and I have talked about that. The only guy that I haven't gotten on is Guy Davis. You and Matt and I have talked about it over the years in individual conversations. But
Guy works for Guillermo del Toro now, and he's not another echelon. He's still Guy. He's fantastic, lovely human. I won't speak for him. He may be on. He may not.
I'm gonna have to see what I can do. But no, and Mike, as always, great to see you, and I'm glad to have you back. And please come back and when either the thing you're doing for Patton's imprint or again whenever there's also something new, I'm happy to have you back anytime. And if we can convince Laura to come out, that'd be great. But if not, you and I, I'm sure, would have a great conversation.
And
we'll
finally finish Jaguar Stories, and we'll come on and talk about that.
I will contact you both. I literally have stuff to tell you that I've just been spitballing in my spare time at my writers group.
Whoa.
Very cool.
Well, yeah, man. Hey, and come back to
you.
that. Oh, I'm talking over Shelly. I apologize. Say it again, Shelly.
Oh God, no! I just said I believe you, Steve, because I've heard it before, and I give you a 1 for your
I have written material now, my dear.
Is Steve, before we wrap up the podcast that you're contemplating, is that, tell me whatever you care about it.
I keep talking to Mike many times over the years about what to do with Jaguar stories, because there's a lot of it done and a lot of it partially done, and it's not something we really finish in that form. And we toyed with, Image was willing to do a weird kind of reinvention of it about 10 years ago, and we started talking about it, just never quite came together. And so now I just think like a true crime podcast about the death of this book is the way to go. I outlined it. I started writing the chapters, and I think it's kind of groovy. So maybe that.
Can it be a comic book about a true
Well,
crime?
then we would do a podcast, and then there would be a book with it. Maybe.
Yeah, companion book with the podcast. I get it. No, I'd love that. I think that'd be amazing. Seriously, and I'm so thrilled with how many comic professionals on the writer's side are getting into podcasts. I know Vita Ayala just did a Jessica Jones story. And in fact, another Man of Action, I talked to Joe Casey a week or two ago. And I kind of asked him if, the format of making an audio drama intrigued him at all. And Steve, as a writer, is that something that would intrigue you?
Form to me is yes to all forms. Like it's all interesting to me. And I just can't believe you talked to Joe Casey. He's my business partner, and I don't talk to him once a year. So that's amazing.
It must be
I
said.
talk to you once a year. Let me be a man of action. Talk about envy.
Come on. You can join.
I want to be a man of action.
I must say, Steve has a history of being a speech coach, and Steve's voice threw me the first time I met him on the phone, because back in the Miko days, don't forget, we only had the phone to connect.
And it was expensive, especially when Mike was in Germany.
Well,
Right, long distance.
Steve, when I first talked to Steve, I thought he was, I was 22, goth girl right out of college. I thought Steve was 102. Had no idea he was only about 15 years older than me.
How dare you?
That's
Well,
what
I was trying to say was I think Steve would be a great person to host a podcast because he has his dulcet tones.
I think the three of us doing an Only Murders in the Building kind of,
Well, yeah, Mike, really, the three of us are kind of like, and Steve by association with his father, but we're all kind of broadcast vets. We should consider that. Come on.
All right.
We'll see.
Steve looks exactly the same as the day I met him. Maybe it's just the filters you have on your camera.
No filters. This is turning gray rapidly.
I would attest to that, though. I've known Seagle for like 20 years or so, and yeah, you look pretty much the same from the first time I ever saw you back in the day.
I only, and I'm not kidding, drink water. That's the only beverage I drink. That must be it.
And
There you go.
I got my water.
Can we can we replace the Alex Ross commercial for Steve endorsing water?
I'm Steve Seagle. Water.
It's the Earth's drink. You should drink it too. Water. There you go.
Or without electrolytes. I must know.
Now, Shelly, for
tap
me,
water. No
it's
additives.
what configuration, how much black is in the hair, how much white is in the hair. When I met her, it was all black.
Yes.
Yeah. I know. I love the 90s pictures of Shell. Yes. Sorry, Sean. I'm
fringe. No, I mean, this is basically, I feel like I lucked out. When I had black hair, all I wanted was platinum white hair. And as I've aged, for some reason, this is pretty much where I'm at. And I've missed the black, so that's where the dye goes. Just
interesting.
So
interesting.
So you've
always rocked
the black and white.
Thank you.
I know. I'm always years ago, or one of our first conversations, Shelly was wearing her missing persons dress that has the great diamond pattern and stuff, like every music video that Missing Persons ever made. I'm like, oh, I love that. That's fantastic.
Up art for the win.
That sounded like Lena Lovitch almost more than Missing Persons, but yeah.
What was that?
I don't know.
Wasn't me. What?
Oh, I don't know. It sounded like, I thought you were doing the voice.
That was
Mike doing the little pickup pop that Dale Bazio used to do.
That's right, Dale Bazio, another fantastic name. Jesus.
I think that was Steve drinking his water.
That's funny.
Married to Frank Zappa's drummer.
Right?
You know that. Wow.
Oh my
I
goodness.
Doppelganger, everybody. There are 10 days left for the Kickstarter project. You
Hey.
should back this.
Thank
Lots of great stories about Vertigo, and also observations of where the comic business is here in the 21st century. So and a lot of diverse voices, all curated by Shelly Bond for this excellent off-register publication that you should absolutely get behind. So, guys, truly, as always, I love talking to all of you, and look forward to our next conversations. And as always, it really means a lot that you all come back and do multiple conversations here on Word Balloon. So I thank you for that.
Thanks, John.
Thank you. Coming up for everyone watching, I'm recording a conversation with Patton Oswalt tomorrow in the afternoon. Tomorrow night, Henry Barajas, who was also in the chat earlier, is going to be on to talk about his new Green Hornet stuff that he's doing with Alex Segura. So there you go. Say yes, indeed. Let's promote Sandman Mystery Theater, the omnibus.
Well, no, intro by Patton Oswalt, of course.
Oh, of course. Wow. Oh, that's great, man. Good for you that you got
Small world.
Small world.
Very cool.
Smaller.
All right, everybody. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. Charlie Brown.
We don't have the rights to the music, dude.
I'm gonna do Shermie's sleepwalking dance that he does in the Charlie Brown Christmas. That's the greatest. Linus and Lucy is the greatest song in the world. It has never burned on me. I love that song. Absolutely. All right, everybody.
Merry
Thanks a lot for
Christmas,
watching.
everybody.
Happy holidays. Everybody stay safe, stay happy, stay healthy.